Hello, coaches. Welcome back to another episode of Coach Better Spotlight. Today, we're talking about innovation and change in a school setting with Tim, Trisha, Diana, Maggie, and Marcello from our YouTube series, Coaching Fundamentals. In the full podcast, we have an in-depth discussion about the Gartner Group's model of the hype cycle and how we can manage expectations, provide scaffolding and structure, and make change less challenging and more successful in a school setting. In today's Spotlight episode, we focus on our conversation about the first stage of the hype cycle, the innovation trigger and the peak of expectations. We focus on specific strategies to make the introduction of new ideas an engaging and manageable experience for teachers with very busy workloads. Check the full podcast to hear us discuss the rest of the hype cycle stages. If you enjoy any part of this video, please give it a thumbs up. And if you'd like to see more conversations like this, please subscribe to our channel and click the notifications bell to find out every time we release a new episode. Remember, you can also listen to the full Coach Better episode wherever you get your podcasts. We are passionate about the impact coaching can have on student learning, school culture, and teacher professional growth, and we want to help you coach better. We've got some great opportunities for more learning after today's conversation, so stick around all the way to the end. All right, welcome to another episode of Coach Better. Today, I am so excited to be joined by so many of our amazing panel from our first YouTube series, Coaching Fundamentals. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for coming back again for another great call. I'm going to get everybody to introduce themselves just like I always do. So, sorry, get ready. And I'm just going to do it in the order that I see you on my screen. So I'm going to start with Tim.
Hi, I'm Tim Bray, also known as TS Bray, and I'm the Director of Educational Technology at Cheongna Dalton School in Incheon, South Korea.
Awesome. And Trisha.
Hi, I'm Trisha Friedman. I am currently a digital literacy coach at the High School of United World College of Southeast Asia at the East Campus.
I think your school might have one of the longest names.
It does, yeah, I felt it.
Diana.
Hi, I'm Diana Beabout. I'm an innovation coach at the American International School of Guangzhou in China, and I'm also the Academy Mentor for Eduro Learning for the Coach Microcredential.
Thank you. And last but not least, Maggie.
Hi, I'm Maggie Hoss-McGrain, and I'm currently taking a year out of school at the moment because I'm looking after my mum in the UK. Up until last summer, I was the Director of Educational Technology at the American School of Bombay.
And you're on location right now, right?
I'm in Johannesburg right now. I'm
cool.
Going to be leading two PYP workshops in the coming week.
Awesome. And today we are going to talk about something because I was inspired by the Zigzag podcast, which some of you may also listen to. It is a podcast produced by Manoush Zimmerodi and her actual producer from another podcast I used to love called Note to Self, but now they run their own media company. And their most current season talked about something called the hype cycle. And they had, each episode featured a different stage of the hype cycle. And as I was listening to the podcast and hearing about the hype cycle in the context of technology innovation, every episode made me think about what it's like to be a coach in a school when we're trying to implement change, because the hype cycle is just about what happens when we have innovation in our environments. So I thought today we could just kind of talk about the hype cycle and what it's like in our schools, how we see the parallels between innovation like in the real world and innovation in our schools, and what kind of strategies work for us at different stages of the hype cycle. And to give you like a little overview, there's a couple of different stages. They are the innovation trigger, the peak of inflated expectations, the trough of disillusionment, the slope of enlightenment, and the plateau of productivity. And the Gartner Group has done a lovely job of making adorable names for each of the different stages of the hype cycle. So let's take it one stage at a time, because what you were just talking about, Diana, is what I wanted to talk about, is who's introducing it and how are we building the hype? Because I think Maggie's story tells us a little bit of the ways that we can manage that hype so that it is not this inflated, peak of inflated expectations. It's a managed level of expectations instead of going like so high up and then so high down again, or so low down again. We could actually manage some of that by the way that we introduce innovation. So if we think about this one stage at a time, and I know we've talked a lot about the trough of disillusionment already and a little bit of this about the slope of enlightenment, but if we think about it from the beginning, from the innovation trigger and the peak of inflated expectations, how can we as coaches support or manage these stages so that it isn't such a huge roller coaster? Does anyone have any thoughts on that?
Okay, I think that in the beginning, most people will just need information. And building on what Diana was saying about our role as a coach, I think it's really important at this point that we stay in the coaching role and we don't come in as the expert, because I think that might already put some people off. And I think that the kind of coaching questions you could ask when people just need information is something like, well, how might you find out more about that? And then I think as we move a little bit further, people might start finding out more, and then they might need to think, well, how is this actually going to affect me and my teaching role? And what the kind of questions that a coach might ask there is, well, what might you be thinking about changing? And then as you move even further on, I think it's really important that as a coach, you actually ask people to reflect on the kind of resources that might be available to them so that they can take it and make it personal for them, for their subject, to really be focused on the learning. And I think that time is a resource that people often neglect at this point, because they you know, to actually introduce something that's completely new takes a lot of time. And for the teacher themselves, there may be a few false starts where they try something, it doesn't work. And then you need to reflect with them and support them through it so that you could ask them, you know, what might you change the next time you tried it? And I think always putting it back on the teacher so that the teacher themselves is thinking about, well, what's going to work for me in my context? What's going to work for my students and my student learning? I think that's really how you're going to work your way through this cycle.
Maggie, I love that idea of starting with questions. And I think the time one, and I'm guilty of this as well, sometimes I think teachers completely overinflate the amount of time they think they have for something new. And I think maybe a partner question with where are you finding the time is asking people, well, what is the thing that you are letting go of? Or what are you going to say no to in order to make time for this? Because then I think it is that reminder of whenever you're bringing in something new, something's got to give there.
I even think alongside the questioning strategies in our individual coaching conversations, a lot of times these innovations come in as school-wide innovations or division-wide innovations. So even remembering to make the time, provide the time for teachers and clarifying what that time is for. I mean, how often do we have innovative ideas come into our schools and they're just kind of added to an existing full plate, but really just kind of expected to pick up and run with it, as opposed to maybe managing some of those inflated expectations and some of the stress of the trough of disillusionment by providing time to work through the challenges or the new ideas or opportunities, depending on how you look at it, that this innovation provides. So, I mean, I think part of that is professional learning about these new changes, right? Instead of just bringing something in without providing professional learning, having an opportunity somewhere in this stage to provide some professional learning, so then you can have those reflective conversations about what you implemented from what you learned.
I think that's absolutely right, Kim. And I think something that very few schools get right is, you know, I think you would say that to a leadership team, we need to make time. And I do think it's all too common where they would say, oh, well, we have this and we have to do that. But, you know, I'm working now at the 7th school I've been at, and the amount of inefficiency at meetings is criminal. I do think when I look back over like the past 2 decades of my career, and I think about the amount of time that has been wasted in meetings that have not been planned out, or, you know, we let certain things go on for too long. I think we need to start treating staff better than that. Maggie, I don't know if you remember this way back when we were at NIST, something that I really liked about NIST is they did a lot of front loading. So if we were having a meeting about something, the reading or the pre-thinking, that was given to us in advance. And I thought that really did a great job of making meetings a bit more efficient. I would love to see more leaders just challenge yourself. That one weekly 60-minute meeting that you have, could you shave 15 minutes off of it just as an experiment? Because I do think things take as long as we give them time for.
Absolutely. And I think we expect teachers to pick up things in less time than it takes.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to say two things I've been talking a lot about with my admin team, and they're two axioms that I'm going to bring up here. I think I might have even mentioned them once before in another episode. But the first one is, if you don't make time for something in the schedule, then the subtle message you're giving is it's not important.
Exactly.
And the other one is, and this comes from a guy named John Chandler, who was sort of a mentor to me in lots of ways. And his comment that I loved was, your mark as a leader is not how many initiatives you started. It's how many of them lasted after you left.
Oh, so true.
And to build on what Tim was talking about as far as the conversations we have with leadership, because, whether this the trigger or the initiative comes from admin or it comes from, some teachers who want to get something going, having those conversations, I always go back, what's the purpose? How is this connected to our mission and vision? Why? Because that's what teachers are going to ask, is why is this important enough for us to be doing? So I think it's about being really clear about that, particularly in a coaching role. I feel like sometimes I'm in that role of I have the relationships with the teachers and with the leadership, as far as when these things come out, that I will question things, not in a kind of way to question what's being happening, but these are the things that we need to think about and revisit it as well as you move along, whether it's looking at the hype cycle or other ones. As you move along, constantly reflecting, is this still addressing, what's the purpose, and is that still there, and how do we need to adjust things? Or if you get to the point with some things, maybe this isn't what's best for the school. But I think the conversations we have with the leadership as well, as far as how to really communicate this to the teachers, and also, as mentioned, if you're going to add time, we got to take away something else as well. So it's really a lot of negotiation of that.
I think along the lines of being clear with the leadership team about what is the purpose, and you as the coach kind of being that sounding board for them in their decision making, I think that also helps mitigate the peak of inflated expectations if we are clear with teachers about what the purpose is, because we can get so, especially with tech, so attracted to all of the shiny possibilities of this thing. But if when we go into this opportunity to share new ideas or new innovations with teachers, and we're realistic about what this tool can actually do, it's not going to be the one tool that does everything, because still that tool doesn't exist, right? But this tool can do these 3 things really well. Or now that you have access to all of these iPads, you can do these different things in these different ways. But it doesn't mean that everything you ever do from now on is going to be just about this one thing. So I think that idea about purpose can also really help the expectations of teachers not be so high. So we're not climbing up to come back. We don't have so much farther down to go to get to, at some point, perhaps that trough of disillusionment. That wraps up today's episode of Coach Better Spotlight. If you want to catch the rest of the recording, find it wherever you get your podcasts under the name Coach Better. And if you enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe to our channel and catch us on social media at Eduro Learning, or follow the hashtag Coach Better. As promised, here is our exciting new professional learning opportunity that we're super pumped to be bringing straight to you. Time to talk is crucial for today's modern educator. We know that so many of you are juggling a lot because your students, your peers, and your stakeholders mean so much to you. We know that sometimes this means making it to a conference or a weekend workshop is not always your best option. And we know that even when you do make it to that conference, you may not have been able to dig as deeply into a topic as you wanted to. You might have been left with unfinished conversations. Your students, peers, and stakeholders deserve professional development that recognizes the challenges of a modern educator. Eduro gets it. We are responding to change in our professional world, and we build the professional development that we want to be part of personally. This year, Eduro wants to harvest your willingness to always learn more, your eagerness to do dialogue diligently. That's why this year we are proud to invite your voice to a brand new type of learning, Mastermind Ed. We know that groupthink is the enemy of creativity. That's why Mastermind Ed focuses on harnessing diversity of thought and context. We know that sometimes best practice is simply the result of not having new practice as part of the conversation. That's why Mastermind Ed focuses on making time for provocative perspectives. And we know that professional development that isn't tailored to you just shouldn't be called professional development. That's why Mastermind Ed prides itself on paving pathways with you. Who is Mastermind Ed for? If you have a role in school or education, this is for you. Whether the topic is brand new or you consider yourself an expert, Mastermind Ed will stretch your thinking and help you clarify key questions. By joining a Mastermind Ed, you will bring back actionable ideas to your school, and you will have a network of educators to think with. So get ready for an online learning environment that values you, your time, and your school. Join us for Mastermind Ed, an opportunity that sparks, sustains, and supplements your inspiration. Early bird registration starts October 7th, 2019, and Mastermind Ed groups start January 13th, 2020. Find out more at edurolearning.com.